And this computer. Okay. So for data handling, when you have a massive data set, just like effectively transferring them onto the cluster will take a lot of time, right? So
Yeah.
a nice way is to do that through a GUI or like something like a software. Imagine you use typically people use something like SCP um, um, software like Windows SCP or things like that.
Yeah, I've been
Um,
using that because when I was using WinTerm, it crashed like crazy.
yeah,
I'm having my Zoom here on a Mac, but then I started doing everything on a PC because the
yeah,
WinTerm kept crashing during the transfer.
yeah. So what I will recommend instead of those will be um software called well, I guess like a program called Globus. So let me share the screen.
Yeah.
Yep. So Globus let's go here. This is like kind of organization that is a very well, it specifies in transferring data and sharing data across multiple computing resources. Um, so the first thing you want to do is make log in to Globus. You can do that if you already have an Access account, you should be able to do that. Let me log out from my account first. But you can go to this screen and then I think there was Access. Yeah, you can log in through Access and then you need to give your Access credentials. Let me push my phone. There you go. Yeah, you get into this interface, which does file transfer. So the way this works is that you will make something called an endpoint, which will there will be an endpoint on where your data is currently on, and then you'll also have an endpoint on where you want to transfer the data to. Typically, a lot of the cluster computers will have an endpoint onto their cluster computer environment. PSC is one of those, and they will have an endpoint onto their cluster. So what you also need is an endpoint set up onto your local environment. Sorry. Yep. So Globus will offer actually Globus personal endpoint. Yep. So Globus has this thing called a personal endpoint. You can like very easily install this Globus Connect personal onto your computer, and that will create an endpoint onto your computer. Once you set that up, you can you can send any file that's on your computer to a different endpoint. Okay? So
Okay.
what I'm doing right now is, for example, uh, gosh, so I have multiple. No, this is not a good example. So what you can see here is that PSC offers an endpoint. PSC bridges to Ocean and Jet file system. They will have an endpoint that's available to everybody. So if you access that and specify a path where you have a credential, you can retrieve all the files that is contained inside there. Taking a bit. Yeah. So now you can see all the files here.
Hmm.
Um, Sorry, I probably need to set up my local endpoint because it was logged out. I should have done this beforehand, but give me a second. I can do that quickly.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. So now on the right side, we have this Superlab SSD. This is our server. We put a Globus personal account endpoint, created a personal endpoint on our SSD server.
Hmm.
So all of the MAR like data coming from the light sheet is saved onto this server. So inside here, you have this like normal smart spim data generated. So we have a bunch
Hmm.
of these data. So like if I open one of these, yeah, you have all the like typical files that you get off the smart spim. So transferring files between two folders is very easy. So on the right side, you select files that you want to transfer. So like say I want to transfer these two files. Actually, for the purpose of this, let's just select something that a little bit more smaller. You can also make a new folder. Yeah, yeah, the connection be a bit slow, but it's very simple. You just press this start button
Hmm.
and start the transfer. Yep. Okay, let's delete this one. Yeah, let's not delete it actually. Okay. So like what you can do is start. And then this will give you this file transfer, the GUI.
Hmm.
And what it actually does is that it goes, it, first of all, it figures out the most stable connection between the two endpoints and then starts transferring the files as effectively as possible. So typically you get a bandwidth around like more than 50 megabytes per second to around like 200 megabytes per second. And that will be a lot more smoother. You don't have to worry about the two systems like being disconnected or like you don't have to be adding like credentials. Typically you have to give credentials to a cluster once in a while to make sure that you're communicating them with them
Yeah.
safely. But and that will sometimes pause the transfer. You don't have to worry about that. You can just give a bunch of files to transfer all at once and then just send it as one job. So
So the
this
main
Mhm.
so the main benefit to the Globus interface is that you don't have to relog in your credentials, and second, you have higher bandwidth.
Typically has a higher and more stable bandwidth. I
Okay.
won't say it's like significantly faster, but it's more stable for sure.
Oh,
Another
okay.
thing is like it's a GUI, so it's like very easy to manage.
Yeah,
Also, one thing that's easier, you can set like more sophisticated things like synchronize the two paths every day or something like that.
I see.
So
Okay.
what it does, and when you generate something new on the cluster, it can retrieve the newly generated files onto your local every day
Okay.
or at the end of the
Yeah.
day or something like that. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of things you can do. And I typically recommend using this if you have a lot of data. It's very hard for you to just like monitor WinSCP forever. So this is a lot more stable. It gives you a notification to your email address and stuff like that. So it's a lot more comfortable. Okay. So that's that. And then let's go to the next part.